part of the geula that we're going into, this time of abundance and peace and integration that the entire world is going into with Mashiach, a huge piece of it is the entering and dividing and conquering the land of Eretz Yisrael. So because we're at this point in history, this idea of conquering the land of Eretz Yisrael, of dividing the land of Eretz Yisrael, is that much more relevant today. So there's a story, there was a Jew in Russia that came to the Tzemach Tzedek and said, I want to go to Eretz Yisrael, I want to go to Israel, I want to go to the Holy Land and live, in a beautifully spiritual, connected Jewish life there, daven and completely get in fully experience the holiness of my life. And obviously this Jew expected the Tzemach Tzedek to give him his full blessing and support him in going. However, the Tzemach Tzedek responded and said, Mach da Eretz Yisrael, make Eretz Yisrael here. The energy, the spirituality, the love, the connection to Hashem, the connection to the land, all of that, bring that, embody that here in your space. You can create that space here. And this story has been told over for a reason. The reason why we know this story is because us in our living in diaspora can and should and are creating this space, this Israel-like space in our lives right here, even just for one moment, because the next moment is geula. So even if in this moment we have an opportunity and the ability to make Eretz Yisrael here, Mach Eretz Yisrael, to create that space. In Galus, we have that opportunity, 200 years ago about, Tzemach Tzedek said that in Russia. And as much as times have changed, living in the Western world, living that much closer to Geula, there still is that ability and that opportunity and that responsibility to create that space here in diaspora. We're going to take a little time discussing the ideas in Parshas Pinchas in regard to the distribution of the land. How did the distribution of the land of Israel work? How was it decided which shevet, which tribe would be in which part of the land? There was, Al pi hagaro techalek nachlasei bein rev lamat. Each portion shall be assigned by lottery, whether for larger or smaller groups. So Rashi says, let me just read it in English. Al pi hagaro. What does it mean according to the lottery? The lot itself spoke, as I have already explained. This tells us that the division took place by Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh. So each of the parts of the lottery actually spoke and said which part is which part. So nobody read it. So this lottery took place in the Midbar. And Hashem makes a lot of miracles, but he only makes miracles when it's necessary. So the question is here, what was necessary about this miracle that the lottery itself spoke to say who is going to be in which part of the land? What was necessary about that? That it had to speak. That just reminded me, a lot of people, to help people remember on social media what to post and what not to post, because some people post really not nice things. You're like, is it kind? Is it necessary? So here, this happened, is it necessary, right? Is it necessary for this miracle to happen? You can just, for the same price, have somebody pick it up. It doesn't have to be Ruach HaKodesh. It doesn't have to be this divine, incredible experience, just for a simple mathematical, logistical situation here. Even though Hashem had to explicitly show that, because everybody knows there are rigged elections, there are messed up, what's it called, accounting, people miscount things, all these sweepstakes and whatever. Like, there's good chance for there to be some sort of fraud. Very, very simple, right? You have a girl in the name of being all like inclusive and fair to everyone. A lot of times in these type of situations, when it's officially a lottery or whatever, it can be problematic. It can be questionable very easily if it's really like legit and there was no fraud committed, even if you have cameras everywhere. So therefore, Hashem had to share some sort of miracle, some sort of clarity that it was through Hashem, that it was from divine intervention, from divine help, right? And in general, there was a lot of that. And the Urim V'Tumim, which was I'm not sure how to say it in English, the breastplate that in general Hashem spoke through it. They needed something more. What was the reason why we needed the next level of the girl itself, of the lottery itself speaking? The point of Urim V'Tumim and all that is to clarify and to make our question stronger. How or what and why is it absolutely necessary for the girl to speak, for the lottery to speak? In the Parsha, in the Torah, this week's Parsha, it says that Ach begarl yichalek es aretz. Only, exclusively, this is a mutually exclusive statement, that only through the power of the girl of the lottery, the land will be divided. Which means that specifically through it, and it can't be done in any other way. And it had to be done specifically through the girl itself. V'yesh leimer as deraber. So here's where the Rebbe is going to answer it for us and bring some chedushim. So if it was a regular lottery, somebody pulled it out, somebody read it out and said, this is where this is going to go, this is where that's going to go, all that, then there would have to have some sort of cross-reference, some sort of verification process that this is the truth. And then it wouldn't be, and then the full weight wouldn't be on the girl, wouldn't be on the lottery, because you would need that other verification to support it. The very fact that the girl would have needed a verification process, a checking back for the answer. You know, what is it like on a math test when you have to prove your work? As soon as you have to prove your work, the full weight isn't on the full weight, the full trust isn't on the original answer. So if the distribution of the land had to be exclusively by the girl, then it had to be 100% clear that this is it. And there's no way that there could be any reason to question it or any need for a verification, right? It's like when prove that you're not a robot and you have to like click it and there's another verification, another one, like there, it has to be whole and complete on its own. So that's why the girl had to speak for itself and not have, let's say, for example, the Urim V'Tumim or some other source to validate it and to verify the truth.
This is, I just want to say, this is like timing wise, unbelievable. I'm so grateful.
Crazy.
It's exactly what I need to hear.
Amazing. So I'll keep going. Then I want to hear. But it's just so crazy because it's like so clear and like all the questions are built up in a way that it seems like there's no answer. And then as soon as the answer comes, it's like there is never a question. You know what I mean? And there's like brings the sense of peace that is so wholesome and integrated. So let's do a little more here. So the question is, the only purpose of this girl is it's like a gateway. It's a connection to the actual process of dividing the land and settling the land. So the fact that the girl spoke is not necessarily connected to the actual division of the land. It's not relevant to the essential act. Basically, because it's a gateway, in and of itself, it's basically just a tool, right? So you can eat with a fork, or you can eat with a spoon, or you can eat on a plate. It's just a tool to get to the point of the consumption of taking over the land. So it seems like it's not really an intrinsically essential part. It just is the mouth to express something. So basically the question is, what's the point? Why? What's necessary? Is it, again, back to our original question, is it necessary that this message comes through the girl? Why couldn't it come from another way? So we're kind of back to that same question. If the girl, which means the lottery, was a mitzvah and a tachlis and a purpose in and of itself, not as a gateway or as a road or as part of the journey to entering and dividing the land. The point is that maybe it could have been just that, but the fact is that it's not. There's something much more essential, that it's not just about the outcome of the girl. There has to be something specific and important and relevant about this lottery that is technically, maybe it's tangential. Is it tangential? What's essential? What did the idea of the girl come over the way that Hashem always communicated through the Urim V'Tumim? The Rogatchover says that anything that is necessary for a mitzvah, everything is intentional. Everything in our experience is intentional by Hashem and connected. So when the Jewish people traveled in the Midbar, it was all a preparation to come to the land of Eretz Yisrael. The travels and the going, and each and every single place that they were, each place that they spent a moment, each place that they spent a night, 2 nights, a year, 2 years, wherever those places were, and thing that they did along the way was part of the mitzvah of coming to the land of Israel. So the fact that the land of Israel and the great mitzvah that the Jewish people were going to fulfill by entering the land, by settling the land, this piece of the lottery of choosing or expressing where each shevet, where each tribe is going to live, the division of the land, this girl itself is part of this great story, and it is very important, to the point that Hashem actually commanded this mitzvah. This is not something that the Jewish leadership was trying to figure out, how are we going to do this? How are we going to figure this out? Oh, let's do a lottery. That should work. No, it's not. It wasn't like a strategic plan here. It was just like Hashem said, this is the way that the land is going to be divided. Tzivoy Hashem, a commandment. So the fact that Hashem commanded this mitzvah, this idea that the girl, that the lottery is going to express which shevet is going to be in which part of the land, it holds this importance, this holiness, this status its own personal status, this idea of the lottery. And not only does the lottery itself have this status, but all the details that go into making it happen, the whole story around it, each and every one of these details are holy, essentially and intrinsically holy, and very relevant and important to the center idea of the dividing of the land. The girl itself is the one that expressed, that announced which Shevet, which tribe is going to be living in which part of the land. And this shows the strength and purpose and intention, and the idea that the girl itself has the power to make the division possible, which is the first step of entering the land. Before they entered the land, they found out who's going to be where. And from the strength of Hashem expressing this mitzvah, expressing that this is how you need to divide it, gave the girl itself all it needed to fully express itself in the idea and in the instruction to the Jewish people that this is how the land is going to be divided, period. And each piece of this process is important, it's relevant, and it is essentially a holy thing as it is connected and as it is manifesting the Jewish people's settling, not settling as in settlers, but settling as in taking up the space and living wholeheartedly in the land.
Each person comes into the world, and each person has, like, we each have a part. We each have part of the land. And it seems very like aleatory, like who's gonna get this, family, who's gonna be, rich, poor, smart, whatever, who's gonna be Jewish, who's not gonna be Jewish. You don't know exactly why this person is gonna get each thing. And it doesn't really seem to make any sense. But really, it's all from Hashem. And Hashem is the one that's saying, this is going to be your peace. This is going to be your land. This is going to be, your challenge. This is going to be your geula. This is going to be whatever it is. And then it comes to a point where I feel like the Rebbe is saying, like, it's not enough just to have the goira. Like, so this is my lot in life. And this is what I have to go through. This is the healing that I have to go through. But Hashem tells us, he says, this is your portion. So I was thinking, like, while you were teaching it, how does Hashem tell us? So it's through our bodies. Our bodies are a part of Hashem, they're atzmos. Our bodies are Hashem telling us, what feels safe, what doesn't, what's the truth, what's authentic, what doesn't feel right for us, when we need to move, when we need to speak up. Our bodies are telling us, this is Hashem telling us what portion we each have. And this is also another thing that I was understanding while you were teaching. I mean, I've learned this sikha many times, I've taught it, but it's so incredible, like, to learn it, like, with you teaching it, Hani, and like with Nechama and Gracie. I feel like everyone's energy brings like something special to the learning. It doesn't seem like it makes sense. This one gets this one gets that. But the truth is, Hashem has this big, humongous puzzle of billions of pieces, and each person's challenge, trauma, whatever it is that they're going through, it seems like everyone's just reacting to everybody else. But the truth is that there is a connection to somebody else's lot. Like, even though it doesn't say in the Sikha specifically, but that's what I understand. Like, it's all part of the same land. So even if, this Shevet is going to get this part, this person is going to get this lot, but it's all connected. And when we each do our part, we each know, okay, this is my goira. And just the last thing about the preparation of the mitzvah is like my whole entire life and everything I came until this point, and every single one of you, like what you went through till now, Hani, Gracie, Nechama, like it's all to this point. And it's like, oh my gosh, so much work, so much toil, so much not knowing to come to this space But the truth is that even when it started, from the moment we were born, that's with the beginning of our healing. Even when I had no idea and I didn't know and I couldn't express it and I was in so much pain and nothing made sense. But the Rebbe is saying that was part of the healing. Don't think that it's just now, or now that you understand a little more and next week you'll understand more, and then in a month you'll understand more. It's like all part of the healing. It's all part of the division of the land. So this is what came up for me. And wow, it's just giving me even more peace to hear from the Rebbe's words, and also the energy with which you teach it, Hani. It's like, wow, it's so special. I'm so grateful. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. It's beautiful. I was thinking that like the lottery is the expression of how things have to happen, right? Like dividing up the land is like everyone coming into alignment within themselves. It's like the land had to fall into place and everyone had to have their, like what you're saying, Simcha Chaya, but it's like everyone has to like know who they are and step into like their own truth and their own inner geula and their own connection to Hashem and their neshama. So the dividing the land, I was thinking it's like everyone getting into clarity, right? Of like who's who, who's what, no more enmeshment, no more codependency, no more like, you know, I'm you and you're me. Everyone's clear with who they are. And in order to do that, sometimes there needs to be like things need to be communicated or expressed that is hurtful or can cause confusion or could cause people to like have to face themselves and they don't want it. So it's like it had to happen through a lottery because something about dividing the land like could have caused so much machlaikas between the people. It's like, no, I want this land. Who are you to tell me where I'm going to go? This part of the land is better. Sometimes we have to express truth, you know, not telling other people what to do, but sometimes we just have to like be who we are and express things that make other people really uncomfortable or makes them, you know, just not want to hear. And it's like, in order to do that, it's so scary and it's overwhelming, especially when there's resistance and it's like, who do you think you are? And why are you saying this? And they like other people like resist or try to push you down or make you doubt yourself and then it's like, wait, maybe I'm making this up. Maybe I'm making problems. Like, where is this coming from? And Hashem needing to do the lottery. It's like when this happens, like Hashem always shows up for us, like, and shows us in different ways, communicates to us, like gives us signs, like, no, trust yourself, trust your body, trust your intuition, trust your voice, just keeping yourself. And it's like, Hashem knows that we can't do this alone. So I feel like that's why, like, as hard as this is, I feel like in my own life, like the harder the situation is, the more signs I get from Hashem and the more he communicates to me and shows me. So it's like the fact that Hashem did it through the lottery, it's like that. It's like when we have to show up and we have to do things that bring up more healing, maybe around us or in other people, that causes a lot of fear for us and for other people. And it's like, it's like Hashem's like, I got your back. I'll show you through many different ways that you're doing the right thing. Just keep trusting yourself. So that's what's going on for me. That's what I heard today. And I was like, thank you, Rebbe. Thank you. So that was really, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Hala. It's such an important point that there's a certain clarity in the way that Hashem communicates with us. What's coming up for me is like imposter syndrome. Like, why do I get this part of the land and you get the other part? I don't want to, like, why do you get, like, not even like in a way of being jealous of, like, maybe like being jealous of myself or whatever, of like whatever I'm getting, or imposter syndrome, like not feeling worthy for whatever that is that the lottery is telling me. And the crazy thing is that these messages come so clearly in so many different ways. And when we're sensitive, we hear them. But even as sensitive as we are, we still need to hear it like in 1 million different ways.
Agreed. 100%.
So I like what you said, like it validated for me, like my imposter syndrome, in addition to like what you mentioned about maybe being painful, but that's kind of not wanting to like step into that because like, what about everyone else, or comparing, or like, how come they're getting it and I'm not getting it, or anything like that.
Has the people accepted the lottery, or have they questioned?
I think they accepted it.
Because they were like in a very like rebel mood in the desert, right? Like they complained about everything. So I was curious about it.
It's a great question. I've never heard of anything like that. There was a lot of drama in this shift. And I think that's the idea, that there are certain things that had to be so undeniably true. And there couldn't be any sort of verification process. Like there can't be any proof. Like this is the truth. And this is how you find out that this is the truth. And there's no discussion whatsoever. I think that's the point here. Like, that's why, like, is it necessary? Yes, it's necessary. Like it has to be beyond any sort of doubt. And you see it so clearly if you have a conversation with somebody who doesn't believe, let's say, that, or not sure if they believe if Jewish people have a right to live in the land or like any of that. But as soon as you go to that language, as soon as you engage in a conversation like that, you lost. Right? But when you approach it as like, this is the essential truth, like this is Hashem speaking through the girl, this is Hashem speaking through the world, this is it. I don't have to explain anything. And I think you brought up a really good point of like, wait, like, were they not kicking and screaming? They knew they couldn't. Like, there's certain things that like kids will kick and scream about, and certain things they won't. Doesn't matter. For like a really good example for families that keep kosher, right? Like, it's not kosher, there's no discussion.
Non-negotiable.
It's not negotiable. So I think the idea here, the energy of Pinchas is 100% not negotiable. And I just thought of it now, that Pinchas was the one who was a zealot. I don't know if, Gracie, I don't know if you know the story, that Pinchas last week, he gave a bunch of curses to the Jewish people. The curses ended up turning into prophecy. We spoke about that last week, and it was kind of like a big mess for the person who hired him, the King Balak who hired Bilam to curse the Jewish people. And then that kind of fell flat because Bilam ended up blessing the Jewish people. He ended up giving Nevuah, prophecy of Mashiach, which no other Jewish prophet gave in the Torah, like really crazy stuff. So he really like put his foot in his mouth. So on last resort, he said, this is what you can do. You know, if you want to really hurt the Jewish people, you just entice them and get them to sin. What is the worst sin is like promiscuous behavior is like the worst thing. So you just send out the women to entice or seduce the Jewish men, and then the deal's in the bag. Okay. So literally they went out, whatever they were wearing, whatever they were doing, and they were successful, unfortunately, and they did seduce a lot of Jewish men. And there was one high-ranking Jewish leader who succumbed to this temptation. And Pinchas, who saw this, and he was like horrified. He's like, how is this happening? So he took a sword and he actually stabbed this person. And then the next Parshas is named after him because of how he just stood up in such a zealous way to honor the name of Hashem. Because like literally everyone was around and this is like a normal thing. And he's like, excuse me, like come again, how's this real life? And he immediately took matters in his own hands and he's like, okay, goodbye, this is not okay. And it's interesting because it seems like that same energy of like, it wasn't. And then there's a whole discussion of like, what was that the right thing to do? Was that whatever? As soon as you would start asking questions and halachically, it would be much more complicated. Take it to court, take anything to court. You know how long that takes. But he took the risk because of how, and it wasn't calculated. It came from such a like visceral thing of him. Like his body is like, no, this is not okay. I'm going to do something, you know? So a kind of like, for me, as you're asking, like that really connects of like, this is okay. This is not okay. This is like not negotiable. And Pinchas was that person. Moshe and Aaron were there. No one did anything. Pinchas was like, we're not cool with it. And so he took matters into his own hands. And there's literally a parsha named after him because of that. So
It's very connected.
yeah, it's amazing.
The idea, like also what I was hearing about, like standing up for truth and standing up for what's right, even though it's scary or people don't want to hear it, or it's like the same theme.
And you can't explain it according to halacha. You can't explain it according to psychology or anything. You can't explain it. This is the truth. And I guess this idea of keeping super focused on what is relevant. What is my priority? What's my relationship with Hashem? Everything else?
It's also like what you were saying, Fani, and both of you, like that he didn't, first of all, he didn't get the validation, but also that it didn't make sense. Like really, if you think about it, he was a zealot and he did something crazy, killed someone. And like logically, if you like break it down, like what is he doing? It doesn't make sense. But it's like sometimes we have to do something and we feel so clear and strong about it. And like we can't start rationalizing it. Like, wait, this doesn't make sense. Like, why would I do that? Why would I say that? Like, what's the reactions? It's like, it's not logical. It's like we have to just move forward. But also part of the process, it's like last week, the whole message of Bilam is like, the transformation and facing the pain and doing the, and like everything, there's a purpose to everything. And then this week it's like, and sometimes part of the process is that we have to like expose past trauma and face it and like bring it up. And, you know, and like, it's just, there's different parts of the process and it's all of it.
And I think another really important thing about what Cosby did wasn't punishable by death. Even if it would have gone to court, however, it was a time and place. And Pinchas was just like, this is non-negotiable. This is 100% unacceptable. And the Jewish people were not behind him on it. Most people were just like, literally like, relax. And he's just like, no, like this is where it stops. Like, this is where the buck stops here. And sometimes I think as women, we do have that sense, like when that is, mothers for sure. They're just like, this is it, you know? And to really listen to that voice, even if it doesn't make sense. And you know what? Maybe if it doesn't make sense, like that's better. Like that's your sign that you're being the
exactly.
right person. I don't know.
It's about like listening to our inner lottery, which is like Hashem's voice.
Exactly.
How do we know if like we are not getting it wrong? How do we know if it's like really like something to be heard, you know? I get myself like overthinking about it. Like when a voice comes and then it's like, is it really the way? Is it really like what I'm supposed to hear right now? Or is it just like my thinking mind trying to manipulate me?
Yeah.
I know there's no answer, just wanted to like bring up the question.
I think for me, if it's a risk you're willing to take, then take it. That's how I feel about it right now. As in, if it's something that comes up, Pinchas didn't think more than a second before he did what he did. It wasn't like he was a zealot. That's like the fact of them. Like that's what he did. And I think as soon as you start explaining, you're not going to be able to explain it.
You have to get out of your head for sure.
So I don't know if you have to get out of your head and do whatever you want in your head, but I'm saying like as soon as you explain it, then you're losing that voice. Because that's the whole thing about the lottery, that it couldn't have been explained or supported by anything else. It had to stand alone with its own voice. So I think your question is excellent. Because we kept on asking, like, is it necessary for the lottery to speak for itself? Is it? Yeah. So you start explaining it, rationalizing it, the lottery itself loses all of its credibility, not some of it, all of the credibility. No credibility left. Wow.
I wanted to answer what Gracie was saying about the selfish, that it might seem selfish. So I heard a line from someone many years ago. I thought it was amazing. He said, the most selfless, altruistic thing that I could do for the world is to take care of myself, is to have self-love, is to, really take care of myself, not just superficially, like really, really do what's good for me. And I love that line. It always stayed with me, because when we're doing for ourselves, we feel like, okay, we're putting boundaries, we're not people pleasing, we're not overextending ourselves, we're not being there for others. But when you're there for yourself, like totally, completely, and wholesomely, you really open that energy for other people to do the same. And like what Khani was saying before about like, oh, like my lot, you know, I got this, you got that, whatever. I know I've struggled with that in the past sometimes, like, oh my gosh, like I have so much. It's like, who am I to have all this? But the truth is that this is Hashem expressing himself through me. Like this is, you know, the abundance and the love and all of that. So it's like our mind can sometimes, like you were saying, Gracie, for like it could sometimes trick you here, there, but not the body, not the heart, not the emotions, which I think we've heard the opposite. We've always heard, oh, don't listen to your heart, don't listen to your instincts, don't listen to your body, or just do what's right, like go follow your head. But we're coming to a space now of so much geula and redemption. Like a person cannot live in this world without that intuition. They can't live just in their head. And if someone is living in their head, because there's something happened in the body, because naturally people do live in their body and their instincts and their emotions and their heart. I mean, that's what makes us human. If not, we would be a computer. A computer is just rationalized. It's like, it's miraculous. I think I once mentioned to Nechama, we were talking about it, like, could you imagine like every single person stepping into their own energy and light without worrying about what other people think? Pinchas didn't care what other people thought. He knew that this was what needed to be done. And just a little detail about that. He killed this Jewish man, prince, and this non-Jewish princess while they were having, you know, intimacy. I don't know if that's intimacy. They were having relations. And he took the sword. He went right through their reproductive organs. That's how it says there in the Rashi. Or Rashi, I don't know, one of the commentaries. And then he went right into them and he picked them up in the sword. I think the Medrash says that. So the whole people saw that. So he was very bold. Like he just, like he was like, this is what's happening. Everyone see this. And I'm putting an end to this. Like this is not continuing. Like Hani says, this is not negotiable. This is not something to talk about. Sit, you know, let's make a chord and talk about it. And actually, that's what a zealot could do. He can only do it on the act, like while it's happening. If he would have done it a minute, like when they're not having relations, he would have been penalty of death because he couldn't do it. So he had to do it at that exact second. So I think that's what also brings us to another point, which is time sensitive. Like things come up for us, information and how Hashem uses us. And it's exact moment. It's not about, oh, let me see, let me think. It's like, it's now. This is the opportunity, but not like in a desperate way.
So there is an answer to my question. That is, depends on the root of what this voice brings us to. If it's love, if it's self-love, if you're not hurting anybody, and if you are respecting yourself, then it's the love. It relates to what we were speaking early today, that it becomes an example too. When you respect yourself, even though it may hurt the other person, but then he has this role model to like repeat it for himself too.
Wow, yes, wow, exactly.
You know, and also like every single time let's say there are certain siblings who call me or whatever, and I can't talk then, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I can't talk. They always tell me afterwards, like, we were so annoyed because like we felt like we desperately needed you, you know, and then afterwards we realized like we worked it out ourselves, or we were supposed to like, or like I was just in a crabby mood and I just like was lonely and needed you. And like, you know, if Hashem is telling us no, there's a reason. Like there's not, I just want to also say, Simcha, I think the two things that you just said that made me think, like, number one, that like he caught them in the act, you know, and then to me, what's coming up is like, sometimes also we're like, let's say we need to like express something or tell someone, but it's like, oh, it's too private, it's too personal, or it's too hurtful, or it's too, like we give ourselves all kind of excuses. But like, this is so extreme, this story with Pinchas. It's like, if you can go that extreme, like what lesson for us? It's like, when something needs to happen, it needs to happen. And then also about like doing it in the moment. It's so interesting because like so many times, like I'll have these experiences where it'll be very intense and I have this like clarity that I need to move forward and have these realizations. And before I know it, like within 24 hours, I'm like speaking to the other person and like moving forward and making it happen. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, am I just crazy? I'm like impulsive and I can't, but then I always like reflect and I'm like, no, like in that energy, when I'm like, it's almost out of body experience, that's when it needs to happen. Like when I land and I'm calm and I'm like ready to move on, like I never would do such crazy things.
Don't always sleeping on it is not necessarily the answer. But I do, Gracie, I want to go back to what you said, because this is what the Rebbe made really clear in the questioning of the Sikha. Like, why wasn't the lottery part of a greater process of choosing? And the point is that as soon as there would have been something else to verify that choice, it would have lost all of its credibility. And as soon as you start explaining something that you feel needs to happen, that feeling loses its strength. And I'm saying this to myself.
And to me,
I'll say it again. As soon as you start, and I also, okay, good. As soon as you start explaining why you're acting on a certain feeling and a certain intuition, a certain desire that feels like a voice that's coming from your soul, you're taking away credibility from that voice, because that voice needs to be the only voice. There can't be anything to explain it, to some algebra proving of how you got to where you got to, or some reason why it makes sense financially or why it makes sense for somebody else or anything like that. I'll just like give you an example. How annoying is it when somebody makes a decision or communicates something with you and tells you, oh, this is good for you. Thank you. Like, I don't need you to decide what's good for me. But it's that same idea of like, we do it to ourselves all the time. But can we just hold on to that voice and trust it wholeheartedly and say, thank you, Hashem, for this clarity. Thank you, Hashem, for this gift to know that this is where I need to be right now. And nothing else matters.
Because then you step out of the way.
Something else, what?
You step out of the way and then let Hashem talk. You.
And you don't have to explain. Hashem doesn't need any lawyers.
Yeah.
Hashem has a lot of explaining to do, but he doesn't need your lawyer.
What a deep class. Thank you so much. I just wanted to share that I am so, you always say that I brought grounding to the group, but I just feel so much need of grounding right now. I've been shopping like crazy. I don't know what's going on, because a part of me like really is needing to like materialize something. It's like I have this something here, like as if I'm in a free fall, and I'm feeling this like very intensely right now. Just wanted to share that, but it's a good, very good thing. Yeah. But still needing like the support of this group, because it's like something really huge to deal with, and it's not something that we can talk about very openly and easily.